What is going on, guys? Thank you for tuning into another video with me, Alex. Today I wanted to discuss the idea of handling resentments that we can pick up in life. Maybe you're harboring a resentment or two at the moment. Maybe it's around what someone did to you in the past. I know that I had many resentments for a long period around what people did to me and what I thought was a injustice, and I sort of harbored this resentment, and I found myself kind of holding on tight to this grudge about someone or what some environment did to me, whether it was at school or whether it was a certain teacher that said something, or a family member, whatever it is. We can go through life picking up and holding on to these resentments about life and the work that we go to every day and the people we interact with. And I wanted to use this quick video to talk about how I have approached resentment and grudges and holding on tight to things that can hold us back in life. For those of you who are holding on to resentments, how does that make you feel? It's not a very pleasant, positive feeling, and we're going to go into that. So I want to break it down into three elements that I feel, that I know through the work that I've done with myself, on myself, and with other people that I work with. There are three aspects to handling resentment and moving past it and turning it into something positive that you can then work with and really take advantage of as you move through. Those three pieces are, very quickly in a nutshell, you want to first of all accept the situation as it is. I know that it sounds like it's almost like giving up, but it's very much the opposite. You want to accept the reality of what's happened. It's in the past now. You can't change the past. Secondly, you need to understand this very, very key component of dealing with resentment, which is that we are weakened when we hold on to a resentment. When we can't let go and we find ourselves being emotionally attached to a resentment, which is existing in our minds, we're actually weakened by that process. And thirdly, we want to find the opportunity in the resentment. So the resentment can be seen as something that is holding you back and is a weight on your shoulders, which many people go through life carrying around, or it can be seen as an opportunity. It can be seen as a trigger point in your life, an event in your life that led to a positive chain of events. So the first aspect, going back to the first thing that I suggest people do when dealing with resentment, is just accepting the reality of it. What you're resentful about, the person you're resentful over, the breakup that happened, the bullying experience that happened, the thing that your dad or your mum said to you over and over again, which you interpret as an injustice that you're now holding on to and you're feeling resentful over. Accept that it happened. Life dishes out all kinds of positives and negatives. And if it happened in the past, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't go back into the past, which is an illusional space that we create in our minds. The past is a mental construct. It's a series of present moments. You can't physically go back and change anything. So why are you spending time putting energy and thought and rumination and concern into things that you can't any longer change? So it's about, first of all, recognizing the futility of trying to exert any degree of control over something that you can't any longer change. It's happened. It's something to accept. That alone is going to bring a lot of relief for you, because there's a lot of us who, to some degree, harbor the idea in our minds that by worrying about something, by putting energy on something, by thinking about something over and over again, and physically tightly holding on to a resentment is going to do something about improving it. But the reality is that it's happened, it's in the past, it's unchangeable, you can't change it. It's about recognizing the Stoic idea of life being a lot more enjoyable, a lot more productive, a lot more high performing when you realize that there are certain things you can't control, which you want to step away from. There's no point being there, and there are certain other things that you can control, and it's about recognizing the things that you can control. But with a lot of resentment, you can't control any of that stuff, so leave it. That's the first step, you could say, in handling, overcoming, moving past resentment. Second step, realizing and understanding and being rational about how holding on to a resentment and the action that prompts in you, the behavior that prompts in you, is not helping you. It is weakening you, in fact, physically, mentally. It's breaking you down slowly. The more you hold on to a resentment for the longer period, and the more tightly you hold on to it, the more you're actually suffering as a result, the more you are actually putting a disadvantage on yourself as a result of holding on to the resentment. How does that change things when you consider all of this resentment that you've been holding on to around other people, around your past, around your past experiences? How do you see things differently now that you start realizing that actually you're the one putting more pain on anyone than anyone else? It might feel empowering to hold a grudge. It might feel empowering to hold a resentment and to block yourself off from being open to a connection, being open to conversation, being open to forgiveness, because it feels like you're exerting a wound on someone else who deserves it, or something else, some idea in your head is kind of deserving of your turning away from it. You blocking yourself off from something it feels empowering because it feels like you're getting someone back for something. It's like an act of revenge by closing off to someone or something or some idea. But who's it doing the most damage to? The people on the other end of it can't feel that. They can't see it really. It's you that's suffering the most. You are weakening yourself through the holding on to a resentment. So that's the second part, just kind of realizing, stepping back from all the emotion around it and just being rational and logical about what's actually going on in your mind and what you're doing to yourself through holding on to these grudges. You are the ultimate loser in this. And by seeing that, realizing it, you're going to come to more of a sense of clarity, and it will no longer seem like such a good idea, perhaps. Maybe those ideas are starting to break down around, well, is there any good reason for me to hold on to this? Again, you're not necessarily giving up. You're not necessarily acknowledging what someone did as a good thing. You're simply letting go of the need to hold on to the thought tightly, physically. That's all you're doing, because up until this point, you've been seizing yourself up around the thought that you have been dealt an injustice. And that's only going to make you lose sleep, make you more anxious, more stressed. It's going to decrease your performance in all aspects of life. You're really holding yourself back as a result. So just seeing the futility of holding on tight is going to be powerful in itself. That's the second part. The third part is and this is the most powerful part, but they all work together. They all need to hold themselves together. And that is seeing the opportunity that sits like a little diamond in the coal within the resentment. And that is a case of asking yourself the question, well, what did this phase of my life, what did this experience, what did this heartbreak give to me rather than take from me? And if you look deeply enough, you look closely enough, you're going to see that in every case, there was something that was given to you. There was a real gift wrapped up in something that looked ugly, in something that looked painful and felt painful. But actually there was a gift inside. And you, up until this point, have chosen to push the gift away. Now that you've seen the futility of holding on tight to a resentment and how much of a waste of energy that is, you're free of that weight. But you're not only free of the weight, you have a path forward that you can forge ahead along. And that path ahead is going to be made a lot easier when you change your own perspective on what the resentment and what the event meant to you and what it could lead to. And ultimately, this is all about perspective. It's all about how we see things, and we can ruin our own lives. We can hold ourselves back by seeing things in a very negative light. And it sounds kind of, a lot of people, they push this idea out the door because it seems too simplistic. It seems too easy just to say, oh, you know what, rather than seeing this as a traumatic event that I want to hold on to and never let go of, all I need to do is change perspective and see it in a different light. See it in a sense that this thing taught me something. So it can teach you, but it can also provide opportunities moving forward. So what is that for you? What did that heartbreak give to you? And I like to approach it by talking about two different ways of extracting opportunity. The first one is maybe this event is teaching you to do things differently in the future, and that's an obvious one. If something didn't go well and it led to you feeling bad about things and it led to you wanting to hold on to a grudge, well, maybe it's teaching you that there's a different way of doing things. That's one way of seeing it. The other way is seeing it as an indication that you might want to get really good at that thing that you screwed up on. So maybe it was a relationship that went bad. Maybe it was an experience at school that showed you about a weakness in yourself that you didn't want to acknowledge, that you could then use as an opportunity to get really good at something. So using the resentment as a source of energy is a great idea, because resentment ultimately is a sort of batching of energy. It's a sort of blocking of energy. And by seeing something as an opportunity, you're turning that round. You're using the same energy that's sort of being held up there. So yeah, you can use the energy and the driving force behind what held you back in a different way. You can use it to push you, propel you to things that really genuinely motivate you. So maybe let's use an example of being dumped. That's a common one, being dumped by someone that you thought loved you, and they broke your heart and you felt really bad about it, and you still held on to that resentment over these years. You could now look at that moment and say, well, maybe that was a good opportunity for me to learn a couple of lessons about how relationships work, how women work, how men work, how we think. It was an interesting psychological experiment and a lesson that was learned that I can take forward into other relationships and have much better relationships moving ahead. But at the same time, you might also use that incident as an opportunity because you held on to it. You held on, you didn't like what happened. So it obviously shows that you care, which is a great indication. It will suggest that there's something in that you can really work with in a positive sense. So you could, for example, become, you could commit yourself to becoming really good at relationships, really good at dating, really good at meeting women and talking to people and conversations and interacting with other people. So you can use that, and suddenly things become empowering again. Suddenly things become really exciting because it's like, well, look, if this hadn't happened, maybe I wouldn't have had the energy and the foresight to get really excited about what I could do with this. Maybe I wouldn't have seen the passion that I had sort of bubbling underneath this area of my life that I wanted to get right, and I was so annoyed that I didn't get it right. Okay, so that's it. Those are the three areas that I like to break things down under for when it comes to addressing resentment, and I have found those things to be really, really powerful in helping myself through my own grudges, my own resentments, and helping other people that I've worked with. I'd love to hear what you think about this video down below in the comments. If you've got any other ideas for other things you want me to talk about, share them down below. Do hit the like button if you like this video. Do subscribe and do share this with your friends who you think might benefit from this. Peace out, guys. Really appreciate your time. Take care.